This incredible quote on mindfulness comes from one of the most goated manga I have ever read, otherwise known as Vagabond. It delivers a profound story rich with nuance and combines it with exceptional illustrations that transform empty canvases into striking landscapes and thrilling moments. Vagabond deserves its praise and position alongside Berserk and Vinland Saga as some of the greatest pieces of fiction ever written. All of these mature and cerebral stories brilliantly explore questions about how life should be lived, and each provides us with their own unique and original answer. However, I don't want to look at this masterpiece from a comparative lens. That's because Vagabond can stand proud on its own 2 feet as an amazing retelling of Japan's most renowned swordsman. If I had one word to describe it, it would be realistic. Takehiko Ino blends the time frame, historical fiction story, and multi-dimensional characters into a captivating human experience that hooks the reader throughout. Some scenes will leave you awestruck with its dynamic artwork, but these are followed up by a message so strong that it leaves goosebumps if you give the idea even a moment to fester. By contextualizing the historical period of the samurais with timeless wisdom, this story applies across generations and creates a beautiful contrast between difficulties and the need to overcome them. This is not just a typical story about a swordsman becoming stronger. This is a story where we get to see a person growing up in front of our eyes and discovering what it means to live. Vagabond has a little bit of everything, including drama, action, suspense, philosophy, and even some romance. This variety adds a lot of depth to the story and makes it a compelling experience because along with Musashi, we are also being enlightened with profound life lessons. Along with this, the setting of the story during the lawless times of the samurais makes it hard to categorize a specific character as good or bad. Rather, they all play in this grey area that makes their individual stories exceptionally intriguing. As a character in the story puts it, all the victims of Musashi were people with families, wives, children, and pets. They were people who had their own hopes and dreams, or people who just somehow lived day to day, and they all had their own equally important stories. This is testament to how Vagabond balances spirituality with bloody and gory action, creating a story that is truly one of a kind. It has a raw and real quality that makes it believable, compelling, and artistic all at once. Much like real people, Musashi is a flawed individual, but it's how he comes to terms with that fact that makes his growth and development a captivating story. The gore that is displayed is merely a tool for storytelling. Even the author is repulsed at having to show it. In his perspective, he needs to establish the shadow so that the light might shine through. All of this culminates majestically in the story as the chapters just roll through and expand the narrative organically and engagingly, until eventually, you find yourself awaiting an end that might never actually come. While the series excels in multiple different ways, the art is draped in realism and plucked from life experiences that everyone can relate to. From his experience working on Slam Dunk, Ino's style focuses on movement and environment by capturing the atmosphere of a scene with vivid detail. His dynamic compositions can make readers simultaneously feel the cool breeze of the ocean, accompanied by the physical sensations of stress, like the shortness of breath or a bead of sweat rolling down a character's forehead. Specific frames also emphasize movement and give a visceral feeling of the moment he wants us to focus on, especially during action sequences when we can easily follow the momentum of a sword swing or the impact of a shove. Overall, Takehiko Ino has created a work of art with expertly guided brushstrokes that combine action, feeling, and emotion into a panel filled with so much substance that it's simply breathtaking. Beyond the rough surface of Musashi and his story lies a profound problem we have all faced. His struggles transform into doubt and make him question what intangible end does he want to achieve, but nevertheless, he pushes on. Vagabond is a journey into fantastic character development where the protagonist starts as a one-dimensional young warrior, but slowly becomes more aware of his surroundings, his actions, and his life. Sometimes on his own, and sometimes with a push from some external influence. There is a moment where a young Musashi is asked for help and he responds with disregard. It's only when he grows old himself that Musashi realizes, asking for help doesn't mean you give up. It means you refuse to give up. It shows Musashi's development so beautifully, from starting as a reckless 17-year-old who plunges headfirst into battle, eventually becoming wiser as a person alongside the audience. Not just in terms of martial prowess, but also his mindset. He learns how the title he's striving to achieve is nothing more than an empty label to aggrandize his bloody pursuit. This also applies to the side characters, who function as tools for the author to expand Musashi's perspective. but he grounds them in human struggles that most readers can understand and relate to. There is no better example than the contrast between Matahachi and Musashi. Both of them have lofty ambitions, but Musashi displays an iron will on his journey to fulfill his. On the other hand, Matahachi stumbles, he gets distracted, and slowly he becomes a spectator in his own life while moving further from his ambition in a very human way, serving as a reminder of how fickle and frail human ambition can be. This isn't to say that Musashi is some paragon of excellence. Even his goal is riddled with self-doubt, yet he continues to pursue it, often stumbling on his own mistakes. But still, he lets the mistakes serve as a lesson to learn from and perseveres, all the while inspiring us with his story. Vagabond is a brilliant manga that takes the fluid and natural motion of a battle and combines it with an internal monologue that makes every panel simultaneously thrilling and thought-provoking. However, my only gripe is that this manga has been on a hiatus since 2015 with literally no signs of return. While the author has hinted that he might finish it, his note at the end of the exhibition chapter kinda contradicts this. From what I've read, apparently it seems like he thinks Vagabond negatively influenced the innocent because he let the glorification of gore take center stage as opposed to the art and message itself. This is somewhat understandable as taken out of context, brilliant quotes can come across as edgy and pseudo-intellectual, but contextualized by the character's journey, they are far from being empty words. Like, think about it. What the f does "I have no enemies" mean? Throw such lines out in a normal conversation and expect people to look at you funny. But if you look at when, where, and why this was said, these words have the power to change you. In the words of Eno, I basically see what I'm going for as more like poetry than a story. It had to be a manga drawn in space, to be experienced with one's entire body, or it really wouldn't have been possible to get it across. And to this end, there's even a chapter without any text, delivering just pure action. Musashi's story allows him to pause and reflect, only to be faced by a relatable human problem about who he is and what he wants to be. It is the essence of this feeling that Vagabond is somehow able to convey from the story of 16th century Ronin. However, keep in mind that the manga is not very dialogue heavy, but when it does appear, expect that it will make a massive impact. From the sheer magnitude of reflective thought to the anguish of 1,000 cuts that accompany years of experience on the battlefield, there is immense depth to the story. While I used to consider Berserk to be the greatest manga I've ever read, Vagabond bursts into the rank with an equal standing. This isn't to say one is better than the other. They both have a special place in my heart and are masterpieces in their own way. I believe the form in which Vagabond would excel is in an art gallery, where you can feel one with the environment. But even without that, this is truly one of the greatest pieces of fiction ever. And on that note, we've reached the end of the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.